So I'm here with Jo Ryan, the author of Baby Bliss, the amazing book that I discovered with my second baby. I wish I'd found it with my first, who's just got a really fantastic approach to how to navigate those first 12 months of being a mum, but very more relaxed than some other ways of people talking about those new routines in those first few months. So I want to talk to Jo today about just as a new mum, how you learn to listen to your instincts and go with the flow a bit more and not put so much pressure on yourself to follow what the books say by the letter. So Jo, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so as I said, your book was a revelation to me in a sense, because it was a lot more about following your baby's signals, and if you have a bad day or a bad, the routine falls apart for one day, just start again the next day. No beating yourself up, no anything like that. We've got a pussycat joining us here.
Let's be involved.
Yeah, so tell me a bit more about how you see mums dealing with all of that in the first 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I found that a lot of the books that were out were really kind of prescriptive and very rigid, and in my experience, it was better for mothers to go with the baby a bit, like to go with the flow a bit in the early days. And I found that the women who followed those really strict routines really struggled. And you think that, well, if it says it in the book, that it should work. And I do think for a very small percentage of babies, those kind of routines do work. And for mothers, some mothers particularly, they like to follow strict routines.
Yes.
But ultimately, I think that it sets the mother up to fail, because it is really unrealistic. You cannot, on the whole, get a breastfed newborn baby to last the exact amount of time every time between feeds. And they're not going to sleep for exactly the same time every time either. And so I just felt that it was putting this lot of pressure on the mother, a lot of pressure on the baby, and then ultimately making you feel terrible, because you'd be like, well, why can't I make it work?
That's what I remember. When you'd have one day where it would work and then the next day it wouldn't, and you just feel like a failure in a way.
Yeah,
you really doubt yourself, and I think that is such a hard, because you're learning so much as a new mum to listen to yourself and to your baby, that if you're really trying to follow this really strict regime, you end up believing you're not doing it right.
Absolutely.
And there's a right and a wrong, and there isn't, is there?
There's not, and that's the other thing that I feel quite strongly about. People are either like, well, you're this kind of a parent or you're this kind of a parent. And I think that is unfair, because it pigeonholes you, and you can do a bit of, a few things. But I do think that also we all have an instinct as a mother, particularly about our children, and that I really encourage mothers to follow that instinct. And it's really hard though these days to tap into that instinct, because there's so much noise around.
And Google's right there, and you're 2 o'clock in the morning.
And not only have Google, you've got 1,000 books, you've got everyone in Mother's Group telling you a different thing, you've got your mother-in-law telling you something different, and your neighbour telling you something different. So it is very hard, and when you're a first-time parent, you're a bit, am I doing the right thing? So you take a lot of advice, or listen to a lot of advice, and it just becomes really confusing. And so you don't learn to listen to your instinct. And people say to me, people tell me to follow my instinct. I don't have any instinct. I say, I know it's really hard, but it is there. And if someone tells you to do something that just doesn't feel right, and I think as a mother you know that, don't do it. Don't do it, And I very much sit in the camp of don't judge, don't judge. Because no mother is going to do something that they think is going to be detrimental to their child or harm their child. But we all have different ways of living our lives, and that's the other thing. So I think, if you choose to parent your children in a certain way that's not particularly the way I choose to parent, it doesn't mean that you're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa. And so I think that you need to find a parenting style, or someone that you admire, their parenting style, And, you know, just follow that and try to avoid the noise that is around you.
Yes, and it is a noise. And I think you mentioned this to me when we first met. I think it sounds odd to say, but sometimes as a new overwhelmed mum, you forget that all your baby needs is love. And you forget that that is what you can give and no one else is in that role. And as long as you just keep doing that, you'll get through it and it will be okay. And I think we get so wrapped up with the feed, play, sleep and the whatever that we forget it's just love that we really need right now.
They do. And, you know, I understand how frustrating it is when you have a baby that's not sleeping. And I understand that you can become a bit obsessed by that.
Yes.
And it's also very different when you've got one baby as opposed to two, you know, or a toddler and a baby, because you can't kind of just go with the flow so much anymore. But I do think that arming yourself with a bit of knowledge about the way babies work, you know, so this is how long they should be awake for, this is how long they really should sleep for in the day, you know, arming yourself with those kinds of knowledge, and then generally routine and structure falls into place when everyone's ready for it.
Yes.
But yes, love is the ultimate thing, and there's nothing wrong with sitting and cuddling your baby to sleep. And I can't tell you the amount of people that say to me, I don't want to spoil my baby, or I don't want to create bad habits, and they're talking about a 5-week-old baby. You know?
I was like that. I was worried that if she kept falling asleep in my arms, then she'd never sleep. But looking back, I think, God, I should have just sat there and both of them had a little nap, we would have been fine.
Absolutely. And that's what is lovely in those early days.
Yes.
And, you know, people are more than happy to continue on with that for as long as it takes, and that's fine as well. But there are some people who need more structure because they might need to go back to work.
Yes, that's true.
They have other children in the house or whatever it might be. And so kind of working towards where you want to be, or having an idea in your mind where you want to be, is also a good idea. And to be not afraid of, you know, putting a baby down awake if they're awake and happy, because I think ultimately too, a lot of people think, oh, your baby needs to be asleep when they put them down.
Yes.
When they're tiny. When in fact it's okay to put them down awake. You might have to go back and pick them up.
Yes.
You know, but to try these things as well and give them the opportunity, because they are little amazing creatures that do amazing things.
Yes. So really it just comes down to being kind to yourself.
Yes.
Not following unrealistic expectations or things that don't feel right or feel too structured.
Yes.
And just sort of trusting yourself a bit.
And do it the way that feels right for you, and respectful to the child as well. It's all about being respectful to the baby, because they have needs and wants, and they're little people as well. So go with your instinct if you can, or if you feel like you can't find your instinct, find something that resonates with you and go with that philosophy.
Great, thank you.
That's all right, my pleasure.